the year 1218, nestled within the Feudal region, stands Munzenberg Castle, a stronghold where Ibad von Munzenberg tirelessly works. As the Castellan, Ibad is a multifaceted figure, successful manager, tacksman, master of ceremonies, and head of the castle guard. His primary duty is the protection of the local peasants. If these peasants ever feel neglected or unprotected by their lord, their willingness to support him with the fruits of their labour will quickly dissipate. During this time marked by brutal violence and conflicts, there is a conspicuous absence of standardised imperial laws. Munzenberg Castle, already a formidable bulwark, is slated for further fortifications with a new keep. Ensuring the safety of the Feudal region is paramount, but the ongoing construction presents numerous challenges for Ibad. He is the go-to problem solver, capable of finding a way to make things work under any circumstances. Despite his competence and determination, Ibad faces a significant personal hurdle. His status as an illegitimate child, or a bastard, bars him from marrying into nobility. This status poses a major obstacle to his aspirations for a glorious future through marriage to a young noblewoman. The Holy Roman Empire in 1218 is vast, stretching from the Baltic Sea to Italy, and ruled by the legendary King Frederick II of the Hohenstaufen dynasty. Frederick's rule is fraught with instability. The Lombards in the south rebel against him, and powerful dukes in the north strive to curtail the young king's influence. To assert his power, Frederick commissions the construction of numerous fortresses. In an era devoid of capitals, uniform imperial laws, or a civil police force, these fortresses become crucial centres of power with their own courts of justice. Munzenberg Castle plays a critical role in safeguarding the fertile Feudal Valley, home to one of the empire's largest granaries. The responsibility of managing and protecting the surrounding towns, hamlets, and the city of Munzenberg falls on Ibad von Munzenberg. As the Castellan, a governor of sorts, he has a demanding role that begins at dawn each day. He resides in an official residence within the outer ward of the castle, a house of roughly 100 square metres, 30% larger than the surrounding homes. Ibad is attended by his own staff, including a servant and a maid. Like all Munzenbergs, Ibad wears the family's colours, red and gold, signalling his noble house. His attire, complete with weapons on his belt, indicates his completion of night training. Ibad is both cultivated and a seasoned warrior, a product of long years of privileged education. Despite his status, he is viewed as flawed due to his illegitimate birth. The history of the Munzenbergs dates back about 60 years, with Kuno as the patriarch. Kuno and his wife had 3 sons, but 2 died young. Consequently, their third son, Holish, followed in his father's footsteps to become the lord of the castle. Ibad is Kuno's youngest son and potential successor, but unlike his siblings, he does not share the same mother, making him an illegitimate child. His mother was a woman of gentry status, with whom Kuno first had an affair. The term bastard derives from the Latin word bastrum, meaning pack saddle, alluding to the presumed location of their sinful encounter, a horse. Extramarital relationships were common in the Middle Ages, much like today, and men often had several mistresses, especially when there was a significant social gap. Bastards were frequent in medieval society, which lacked birth control. Although the church began advocating for monogamous marriages in the High Middle Ages, its influence was limited. In the medieval world of 1218, being a bastard like Ibad von Munzenberg comes with its own set of challenges. Despite his illegitimate status, Ibad has managed to carve out a significant role for himself as the Castellan of Munzenberg Castle in the Feudal region. Although his birth prevents him from inheriting land or titles and makes it difficult to find a noble wife, He's fortunate to hold a position of considerable influence. In many noble families, bastards were seen as assets, ideal candidates for roles such as representatives, castellans or managers, especially as families gained rank and power or conquered new territories. Given his title, Ibad ranks second in the castle's hierarchy, directly after his half-brother Ol the Castellan. As Castellan, Ibad's responsibilities are extensive. He oversees a wide range of duties, requiring constant control, foresight, and assertiveness. A successful Castellan must be skilled in negotiating with the peasantry, dealing with village leaders, ensuring dues are paid, and verifying the quality of produce brought to the castle. Essentially, he is the manager who keeps the entire operation running smoothly. Ibad's role demands an immense amount of dedication. He works at least 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, fulfilling his numerous responsibilities. Often the lord of the castle would be away, travelling, leaving the Castellan to maintain the castle's operations and protect its residents. Munzenberg Castle, though its original floor plan from the time it was built is lost to history, has been reconstructed by historian Dieter Wolf, showcasing its impressive architecture. Approaching Munzenberg from the south via the main road, the castle loomed like a giant fortress, an imposing structure meant to convey the power of the Hohenstaufen family. It was built not only as a residence but as a fortified defence complex, with ruins resting along an elongated conical peak with 20 metres of steep sidewalls. The basalt rock hill on which the castle stood made it nearly impossible to conquer, and its 2-metre thick walls were designed to keep attackers at bay. About 200 men were responsible for the castle's defence and the protection of surrounding villages, with the Castellan as their commander. The core of the inner ward was the palace, the main building with a great hall, where the lord of the castle lived and received guests. Anchor holes reveal where ceiling beams once were, and a large chimney indicates the location of the kitchen, where staff cooked and baked around the clock to ensure everyone was fed. Perishable foods were stored in cool, dark cellars, while the chimney, several metres high, served as an exhaust hood to enable steam and smoke to escape easily. Near the kitchen wing stood the eastern keep of Munzenberg Castle, built during the first construction phase. This 30-metre high tower allowed men to spot enemies from afar. A site map shows how the inner ward of Munzenberg Castle looked around 1218, surrounded by a chemin de ronde, a walkway along the walls. Within the inner ward were the palace, a chapel, a keep, a granary, workshops for carpenters and blacksmiths, and 2 stables for the many horses. A well secured the water supply, ensuring the castle could run autonomously for about 3 months in case of war. The outer ward was located outside the actual castle walls at the foot of the castle hill. This area included a large farmyard and the courtyard house of the steward. The outer ward of Munzenberg Castle is bustling with activity. It houses a bakehouse, barns, workshops, and all the essential facilities required to support the inner ward. As Castellan, Ibad von Munzen ensures that everything runs smoothly, acting as a critical link between the nobility within the castle and the peasantry in the surrounding villages. His role is vital to the economic system that sustains the castle and its inhabitants. The steward of the castle, who is responsible for collecting fees from the peasants and managing stock, works under Ibad's supervision. Despite favourable weather conditions this year leading to record harvests, Ibad must ensure that all operations are conducted efficiently. Over recent years, arable land has been expanded to meet the needs of a growing population. Technological advancements, such as improved ploughs and carts and the use of livestock for farming, have significantly boosted agricultural yields. The peasants, who rely on their harvests for survival, are required to hand over a third of their produce to the lord of the castle. Another third is kept for sowing next season's crops, and the final third is reserved for their families. In addition to crops, peasants pay taxes in livestock and monetary fees for land use. The relationship between the lord and the peasants is one of mutual dependence. The lord needs the peasants to survive, and in return, the peasants pay various fees, making survival possible even in lean years. October 1st, the day of St. Ridus, marks one of the main payment days in the Feudal region. The steward keeps meticulous records of each peasant's dues using tally sticks. These sticks, marked with orthogonal grooves representing the old amount, are split lengthwise, with one half kept by the steward and the other by the peasant. This system ensures an accurate, forgery-proof method of accounting. Life in Munzenberg is not without its conflicts. The von Munzens have been at odds with their neighbours, the von Grans, for years. The dispute centres around a profitable mill in Robertsburg, owned by the von Munzens, which the von Grans are keen to seize. In these power struggles, the peasants often suffer the most. In the Middle Ages, such conflicts were frequently resolved through feuds, a legal form of taking matters into one's own hands. The Saxon Spiegel, a legal code from the 13th century, provides insight into the era's legal system. While the king and his lords were responsible for jurisdiction, the sheer volume of conflicts overwhelmed the system, leading many to settle disputes through feuds. A regional example of such a feud is the conflict between the Helldorfs and the Erwins, sparked by a dispute over a bucket of wine, a seemingly trivial matter that escalated into a violent clash involving 1,000 armed men. Feuds could arise from various grievances, including defamation, theft, and adultery, often resulting in violence and manslaughter to avenge perceived injustices. Despite the seemingly arbitrary violence, strict rules governed feuds. They had to begin with a formal feud letter, officially ending any friendly relations between the parties. Only after 3 days could hostilities commence, allowing for attempts at de-escalation. Despite the inclusion of a 3-day period meant to encourage mediation and renegotiation, feuds in the Holy Roman Empire often spiraled out of control. This period was designed to give disputing parties a chance to rethink their actions and perhaps involve a mediator to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. The intention was to avoid conflict, as smashing each other's heads in with swords seldom resulted in long-term benefits. Yet, despite these measures, feuds continued to escalate. In 1218 alone, over 300 feuds were officially recorded, with actual numbers likely being 10 times higher. The peasants were particularly vulnerable in these conflicts. Without armed protection forces, they were at the mercy of attackers. This delicate relationship between the lord and the peasants was based on mutual rights and duties. Medieval peasants were not slaves. They contributed their labour and produce in exchange for protection and justice. If peasants felt neglected or unprotected, their willingness to support their lord would quickly diminish. Thus, Ibad von Munzenberg carefully considered the impact of his decisions on the peasantry's livelihood, as their fees were essential for the castle's income. Peasant fees formed the primary source of income for the castle, with a third of it going to the king. The remainder was needed to stock supplies for the lord's family, servants, guests, and banquets. Even a well-managed castle like Munzenberg had limited reserves. The threat of rural flight was significant. If life in the countryside became too harsh, peasants were tempted to move to nearby cities like Gießen or Frankfurt, further depleting the rural workforce and destabilising the castle's economy. On his return to the inner ward, Ibad walked along a path lined with wild mint, the herb that inspired the name of Munzenberg Castle. As he entered the palace, his half-brother Ulrich awaited him. Ulrich, head of security, needed assurances on how Ibad planned to protect the castle and the surrounding region from the von Grans, their hostile neighbours who had issued a feud letter demanding money and control of the mill to restore their family's honour. Ibad commanded a force of 10 petty noblemen, or Bohrmänner, who were extremely well armed and could mobilise at least 500 men in emergencies. The peasants too would have to step in if necessary. With this plan, Ibad demonstrated his skills not only as a manager, but also as a capable military commander. His primary goal was to protect the peasants and the guests arriving for a banquet that night while putting the von Grans in their place. Ulrich von Munzen aimed to strengthen alliances with other neighbouring families, particularly the von Bellersheim family. Though peaceful, the von Bellersheims were financially strained and had yet to find a husband for their third daughter Mechthild. Due to a lack of dowry, Ulrich proposed a marriage between Ibad and Mechthild, with the von Munzen family waiving the dowry in exchange for the alliance. This marriage was a strategic move that benefited both families, ensuring the continuation of the von Munzen dynasty. In medieval society, bastards often served as reserved children, stepping in to maintain family names and alliances when legitimate heirs were unavailable. Despite his status as an illegitimate child, Ibad's life was nearly perfect. He bore an important name, had been knighted, and held the influential position of Castellan. All that was missing was a bride, though his duties left little time for contemplation. The von Munzen family planned to build a second keep, a powerful symbol of their authority. Important houses often constructed 2 towers or keeps to showcase their power and significance. The construction of the new keep had just begun and would take years to complete. As Castellan, Ibad was responsible for overseeing the project's timeline and budget, ensuring everything proceeded according to plan. Ensuring the construction targets for the new keep are met, Ibad oversees a diverse workforce that includes men, women, and even children, all toiling from dawn till dusk 6 days a week. In medieval times, wage regulation and occupational safety were non-existent, and the pay was meagre. Most labourers were unskilled, with only a few skilled craftspeople like masons, carpenters, and blacksmiths receiving formal training. These skilled workers often travelled from one construction site to another, bringing their expertise wherever needed. The master builder commissioned by Ibad is no local either. He has acquired his knowledge through years of experience across Europe. In the Middle Ages, master builders were central figures in construction projects. Knowledge was imparted orally, and the successful implementation of a project relied heavily on the master builder's experience. Researchers in the Austrian town of Friesack are keen to understand how medieval master builders erected fortified towers. Without blueprints, they resort to historical construction techniques, relying solely on the methods used by their forebears. The team, consisting of stonemasons, carpenters, blacksmiths, and many assistants, has been working on this project for over a decade. They face numerous challenges due to the variety of techniques used in medieval construction. Unlike today, people in the Middle Ages couldn't simply buy materials. Everything had to be manufactured on site. This included tools and construction materials, which had to be made from scratch. One of the critical elements in medieval construction was mortar. The team at Friesack has conducted countless experiments to perfect the ratio of sand, calcium and water, ensuring the thick walls of the keep remain stable. The ideal mortar mixture was so effective that it even rivals modern concrete. Excellent mortar mixtures from the High Middle Ages have stood the test of time, with many medieval castles and ruins still standing today. Medieval builders employed high-tech methods like ring anchors to stabilize their towers. These wooden ring anchors, integrated into the stonework every 5 meters, functioned much like modern reinforced concrete, providing essential structural support. The tower in Friesack grows at a rate of just 4 meters per year, reflecting the slow pace of construction in the Middle Ages, constrained by the need to work only during frost-free seasons. Unforeseen costs are a constant challenge for Ibad, but worse news follows: a work accident. One of the women falls from the scaffolding, breaking her leg. Though she is conscious, she urgently needs a surgeon specializing in broken bones, but such specialists are only found in the city. Occupational safety as we know it today did not exist in the Middle Ages. Many accidents likely occurred during the construction of castles and fortresses, with some resulting in fatalities. In this instance, the blacksmith steps in to handle the emergency. Though not a medical professional, he is tasked with administering first aid, highlighting the multifaceted roles individuals often played in medieval society. The challenges of construction, from ensuring workers' safety to managing resources, are a constant balancing act for Ibad, reflecting the complexities of maintaining and expanding a medieval fortress. At the castle, the blacksmith steps in as an emergency medic after a woman falls from scaffolding and breaks her leg. He straightens the leg and treats it with herbs like yarrow, ribwort and comfrey, known for their antibacterial, analgesic and healing properties. Infection could be fatal, so asepsis is crucial. The leg is splinted with a linen cloth bandage drenched in a mixture of eggs and flour to stabilise it. Wooden sticks are placed around the bandage and fastened with a string for added support. This rudimentary treatment is the best they can offer under the circumstances. Ibad, nearly forgetting about his kitchen duties amidst the chaos, rushes to check on the preparations for the banquet. Medieval banquets, often centred around meat, were grand affairs. Archaeologists in Basel, Switzerland, study remains from refuse pits and cesspits to understand the dietary habits of the 13th century. Their findings reveal that while crops were staples, meat consumption was high, with peasants and nobility consuming different types of meat, but both enjoying songbirds. Excavations have unearthed bones of various animals, including hedgehogs, dormice, squirrels, cranes, partridges, and other small birds. In times of need, the poor sometimes ate hedgehogs, dogs, and cats. Venison was a common delicacy for the nobility, hunted in local forests and valleys. On special occasions, exotic dishes like peacocks and swans were served, often prepared and presented in elaborate ways to impress guests. Medieval banquets were elaborate affairs with all dishes placed on the table simultaneously. The entire kitchen staff lined up from the kitchen to the Great Hall, ready to serve. These banquets were opportunities to showcase wealth and social status. A successful banquet could enhance a family's reputation, while a poor one could tarnish it. For noble families, banquets were also chances to climb the social ladder, impressing potential suitors and their families. The dinner organised by the von Munzenbergs aims to impress the family of a potential bride for Ibad. In the 10th century, forced marriages gave way to common law marriages, requiring agreement between families and consent from the bride. It is crucial that the potential bride, Myrtil, enjoys her time and is not put off by rough table manners. Having ladies at the table typically ensures better behaviour, although adherence to etiquette wasn't always perfect. The von Munzenbergs hoped that the grandeur and success of their banquet will lead to a favourable marriage agreement, securing a future for Ibad and strengthening their social ties. In medieval times, table manners were evolving. Using the tablecloth to wipe one's hands was impolite, and other breaches of etiquette, such as picking teeth or having long nails, were frowned upon. Sneezing required turning away from the table, and it was taboo to bite off more than one could chew, drink, or talk with a mouthful. In 1218, at a typical banquet, people might wipe their hands on their pants or doublets, burp freely, and toss bones behind them. Despite some guests struggling with the new rules, the banquet at the von Munzenberg Castle is going well. Emil, the potential bride, seems to be enjoying the night and taking a liking to Ibad. As the night progresses, the bride's father pretends to be concerned to negotiate better terms. Despite the church's stance against bastard marriages, people could marry without a priest. Noble families prioritized possessions and alliances over religious strictures. This pragmatic approach remains evident today, with many noble families still preferring marriages within their social class. The von Munzenbergs and the von Bellesheims reach an agreement. The von Bellesheim family will gain the von Munzenbergs' lucrative mill in exchange for allowing them to mine salt at their source. The deal is legally binding and can be formalized with an official document. Ibad is abruptly called away to deal with a brewing conflict at the northern city gate. where the von Grans have arrived with nearly 100 men. The von Grans aim to escalate the feud, intending to steal goods from the von Munzenbergs, possibly using force. Ibad has stationed most of the Bormann to defend the city. He takes a significant risk by attempting to negotiate a peaceful resolution, knowing the higher cost of feuds. Honour in the Middle Ages was paramount, and insults could spark violent confrontations. Feuds were expensive and could take decades to recover from, making peaceful resolutions preferable. Remarkably, Ibad manages to defuse the situation without bloodshed, earning respect from all involved. The wedding between Ibad and Mold is sealed that night, ensuring the continuation of the von Munzenberg bloodline with legitimate successors, despite Ibad's status as a bastard. The alliance brings peace to the Vetera region, and the conflict with the von Grants is later arbitrated in court. The Imperial Peace of Mainz in 1235 ends the feud system, replacing it with an orderly jurisdiction. Ibad and Mild live in Munzenberg for a few years until Ibad gets his own castle. While Ibad von Munzenberg's story is fictional, it reflects many truths about medieval society, highlighting the challenges and triumphs of a young nobleman overcoming the barriers of his illegitimate birth, standing up for justice, and ultimately finding his place in the world.